Hi, it's Brenda Wood. We have another episode of Things by Bren. Today we are with Emily Robbins, and she has got, wow, she's just got a lot going on with her life. And first off, we're going to start with her just introducing herself and telling us her background. So Emily, if you want to just tell us a little bit about your background and where you came from.
Absolutely. So first off, I'm so grateful to be here. I consider Brenda to not only to be a good friend of mine, but someone that I'm getting to know better. First and foremost, I am from Tennessee, small town girl, grew up on a tiny farm, had loving parents, and just went through the average thing that I think a lot of people in America go through, and that's parents getting divorced. It's definitely something that's extremely common, and it's something that I think we've kind of learned to look the other way on. And my experiences through my parents getting divorced and having that broken household is there was a lot of cracks where people could seep in when no one was watching. And I started experiencing sexual abuse at around the age of 10 and was molested and raped up until I was probably 14. Oh. And through that, gained a drug addiction as well as alcoholism. It was something that I was not only shown, but saw as normal with the people that I was around constantly.
So you didn't think anything of it?
I didn't know. I had no and you know, it took till about 3 years ago for me to actually be able to psychologically go, wow, I was molested and raped my entire childhood, because there was such a heavy amount of grooming and there wasn't a massive age gap. You know, I was 10 years old and they were 17 and 18. I mean, that is a big age gap, but
it is.
I wanted to be seen as like a teenager and fun. And when it, you know, every child goes to that stage where they want to be with the big kids.
Sure.
And I just had no understanding of it being wrong, because I was so coerced and believed so much that sex meant love.
Right.
And I think so many young women and men that are molested at an early age have such a skewed vision on what sex means. And through that, you know, the drugs started and the addiction and the alcoholism. And that, of course, caused a mental health crisis. I mean, what, you know, 12-year-old needs to be not only being raped or assaulted, but having drugs put in their hands or their system or alcohol. And I ended up having a full mental breakdown at about 14, and I had never really told anyone anything, and still didn't for a few years. And I was institutionalized in Brentwood, Tennessee. It's a place called Rolling Hills. And I remember that experience just being so, excuse my language, but half-assed. And that's when I started to realize that there was something so broken with the system. And I realized that if I would just play the part, I could get out. They didn't really look at you as a patient. They looked at the group as a whole collectively. And when does insurance cut out? When do we have to get them out of the door? Those types of things. When are we not getting?
It's about money and not about the patient.
Absolutely. So I experienced that. And I remember about the 14th day that I was there, a girl that had been there before me who had tried to commit suicide, I saw her walk back through the doors again because they found her on the street. And she had tried to kill herself again. And she was a homeless girl. And I remember going, this system is wrecked. Oh my goodness. Like I couldn't even understand, you know, especially at that age, how broken the system was. Now when I look back as a woman who's not only been through an intense amount of therapy, but understanding of the system itself and seeing how broken it is, it was just devastating. And, you know, of course, when I was there, I was coming off of opioids. So I was experiencing full tremors and things like that. And when I got out, I changed schools because, for one, I didn't want to be embarrassed, because everyone knew that I was the girl that tried to kill herself and had a drug problem. And so I changed schools and ended up meeting new friends. Actually met my husband. And
that was a positive.
It was positive. We've definitely been through some crazy stuff together. One of our friends, actually, her boyfriend raped me my sophomore year of high school. And I remember thinking, oh man, I've gotten away from everything. I can finally let my guard down. I can create this narrative and I can live. And I think a lot of children do that experience trauma. They just want a place where they can exist outside of themselves.
They can belong and fit in.
Exactly. So when I moved, I was like, I can be whoever I want to be. I can tell everyone this and that. And it was so exciting for me. And then I got to the point where, you know, I got invited to a few parties and I wanted to fit in. Nobody knew that I was a recovering alcoholic at 15. I mean, no one thinks that. And, you know,
Nobody, you're right. Nobody thinks that. It's not something that's brought to your attention.
right. And I, you know, I put myself in not the best situation, not only because patterns are real, but because children don't know better, no matter how many times they're put in a bad situation. And I don't care what anyone says. At the age of 15, your frontal cortex is not fully developed. It doesn't happen until 25. So people can arguably say she was old enough to know better. And I was not old enough. You know, a 22-year-old man raped me. And I ended up going to trial. And it was the first time that I ever felt like I had something stripped from me. Because I'd experienced grooming. I'd experienced someone saying, you're so beautiful and you're so smart. And I want to spend time with you. And coming from a home that was broken, it was like, oh, they've taken notice of me. And
Right.
they don't feel
Made
like they
feel good.
You're right. And it built me up. But to experience rape in the manner that I did, that was, you know, a physical assault, I remember just being so engulfed with anger. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to do something about this. I'm not going to have this stripped from me again. And I experienced the justice system again. Here I am, 15 years old. And we didn't have a lot of money. I had a public defender. And I remember the guy that was helping him out, he was in his late 50s, and he said, I would love to cross-examine you from across the table. And I was immediately like, why is he being so argumentative towards me? And he said, I would just love to cross-examine you because I guarantee you're lying.
He was just automatically saying you were lying.
Yes. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I had countless witnesses that had seen, you know, the aftermath, you know, excuse me for being very open with this, but blood and bruises, you know, I was.
That comes along with it. Yes.
Right. Absolutely. So there were countless witnesses, and I saw how the justice system worked. They slowly drug it out for, you know, 2-3 years. And then I don't know if you're familiar with the Brock Turner case, but he was the young athlete that raped a woman outside of a bar. And his father got on stand and told the judge, he said, I don't think this one mistake should steal my son's right to have a life. And they ruled in his favor. They ruled in the boy who raped the young woman's favor. And the DA team called me in when we were going to trial, and they sent me down because it was going to go to state. Yeah, I had enough evidence. It was a legitimate case. But had just graduated out of high school. And granted, this happened my sophomore year. And I remember just being so exhausted. And that's what the justice system does to victims. They exhaust them so they will quit. And being, you know, where I was, I just wanted peace. But I realized now that I didn't want peace. I don't even know how to explain it. And I still haven't fully dealt with that. But they sat me down and they said, Emily, we're going to prepare you for this. You're now 18 years old. So your files will be publicly released. Your name, you know, we can't protect you. You are
an adult now.
Yes, you're going to be labeled as a whore. You're going to be labeled as a drug addict. They're going to talk about you being institutionalized. And also, here's all of your paperwork from your therapist. They've gotten it all. And now they're going to use it against you, that you're clinically insane, that your family's insane. And I was like, defeated.
Yeah.
Because here were these people that were supposed to be
taking your credibility away.
And they were like, we can't really do it. We don't believe in it ourselves, so you shouldn't either. So it's very easy for me to go, I give up. And then I found out within the trial, I had a detective that had been coming and checking on me, coming to the school. And I guess I really didn't notice his tendencies as inappropriate because it just seemed like he had a fatherly concern because he had a daughter himself. And he would say that to me when he was talking to me. He would call and text me and ask me how I was. And I remember he'd been called on the stand, and I found that so odd because we weren't in the trial yet. And the man who raped me's lawyer said, is it true that you said these things about Emily? And immediately I was like, what is going on? And he said, did you say that you understand why so-and-so would rape her? because of the way that she looked and her body. And immediately the case just started to unravel. And I was like, how did I get a predator for a detective too? And there was just so much defeat surrounding it that I just finally was like, I'm done. I'm walking away. I'm going to lay down this because this isn't my battle. My battle's coming, but this isn't for me because this is stealing my peace every single day. And I was constantly in the state of reliving what had happened. So I settled. He went to jail. I didn't even reach out to the public defender to find out. The only thing I wanted was for him to go on the registry.
Right.
It never happened. He served 9 months. No, he served 9 months, and he only served on weekends. I had no idea of this. And when my husband and I and my mom, we had all gotten a place together, we signed our lease, and I was going out to check the mail. It had probably been 6 or 7 months. And I saw his truck, and I was like, oh my God. And I immediately felt like I was being raped all over again. And I was like, what the hell is he doing here? And as he drove past me, he rolled down his window, looked at me and smiled, and pulled in the driveway next to us. His mother lived next to us. And because he was on probation and I had nowhere to go, I lived next to my rapist for a year.
I can't even begin to imagine the thoughts and the fear.
It was turmoil. And I remember I was so angry with my husband. I was like, why didn't you tell me that he was out? And he looked at me and he said, I just wanted to provide you peace for as long as I could. I just wanted you to feel safe until those walls had to come down. And he said, now they have. He said, I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I had reasoning behind it. And, I understand that now.
Absolutely. He's trying to protect you.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But I lived in fear, and, I didn't have a therapist for, years. And I had so much undiagnosed issues. And then, the childhood thing started to bubble up, and it was like, oh God, these are one and the same. They're just different walks. And, I had untreated post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety. There were all these things that I didn't have control of. And I felt like I didn't have a life. And we were fortunate enough to get out of there and get a new home. And I've ran into him once since then, and he was married, and he has a little boy and a little girl. And it's very hard as far as forgiveness goes. I do believe that I have forgiven him, not the act itself, but him.
Right.
Just because that's not mine to carry. And I refuse to carry that for someone else. I refuse to carry others' transgressions, because I learned a long time ago that the second that you allow someone's actions to become your own, not only do you have to carry the way that it's affected you, but their choices as well. And I feel like I don't even like the term victim, but as a victim.
Well, you are a victim. You absolutely are.
Mm-hmm. I know, but I guess I don't like this.
It's okay to say that you are. You cannot change what happened to you. Now you have overcome that.
Right.
You have been through so much. And when you look at your life now, what do you see? And I know you just had a death in the family, and I know that kind of brought up a bunch of things again. You have just had so much loss and tragedy in your life, but to get past that, when you look at your family with your husband and your kids and your career and what you're trying to do, because you're still very young, and you have a purpose that you're trying to accomplish. And one of the things that you have done is you picked up being a curvy model.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that and the challenges, not only with being raped and being a drug addict and coming from a divorced home and everything that had been in your past. How did that even come into play? And I know you had challenges there with being turned down.
It was the most random experience. I was working in a phone call center, and I worked there maybe 6 weeks before I quit. It was one of those, I'm young, I'm trying things out type of thing. And this woman walked up to me, and she's 6 foot, gorgeous, gorgeous Jamaican woman. And she looks at me and she says, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Excuse me, I'm trying to get a paycheck. What are you doing here?" And she said, "Well, outside of this, I style people's clothing for a living. I'm a stylist." And I said, "Okay." Because for one,
that have to do with you, right?
Right. I was very insecure at the time. So even when people approached me made me uncomfortable. And she said, no, you're beautiful. You could be a model. Like, I see so much in you. And I'm thinking, well, for one, I'm, 5'9", and I'm a size 16. I'm 200 pounds. Like, what do you mean? And she said, just come to these events with me. And she finally talks me into going to this event after she put me in my first pair of heels. We're practicing. She's showing me how to model.
Right.
And I had told her before we went to this event, I said, I'm not comfortable doing this. I don't want this. I want no part of it. It makes me feel even smaller than what I felt before. She said, I just have one person I want you to meet before you give up. So we're at this event, and there's gorgeous women there. They're 6 foot, size 2, the modern society standard of beauty. And I'm looking around like, oh my God, here I am. Just totally feeling out of place. She walks me through this crowd, and the place is packed to the nines. It's so full. And as we're making our way through the crowd, I see this purple hair. And this woman turns around, and she's in her wheelchair. Her name is Alicia Searcy, and she's the founder of Fashion is for Everybody. And she looks at me, and we're talking. And I'm just in awe of this woman that has, I don't even want to use the word audacity, courage to just be herself.
Right.
And I was like, how hilarious of me to think that I don't have a place here, when here's this woman that absolutely sits outside of what the standard of beauty is and exists boldly. You know what? If she can do it, well, I'm damn well going to do it. And she gave me a card, and she said, I want you to come back to my show in 6 months. And that was the first time I ever walked for an agency. And it was my first experience on the runway. And they're an inclusive fashion brand. And I saw people that you would never expect to see on the runway. And it was the most beautiful experience. And a few months later, she set me up with Tribe Talent. And she said, you're going to have a meeting with her. I'm not giving you a choice. And my agent, Sherry, she's phenomenal. We talked on the phone, and she asked me, she said, why do you think I should sign you? And I said, well, and at this point, I'd really been working on my confidence, done a lot of inner work and therapy. And I said, well, I'm going to be great with or without you, because I'm claiming that over myself, not because I'm cocky, but because I deserve it. If you want to be a part of it, you can jump on the train. And till this day, we still joke about it. And I walked in, sat down, and I was one of the first curve models that she ever signed to her agency. And she actually just recently signed Alicia Searcy, who is, I want to say, I think she's 67, and beautiful woman in a wheelchair. Absolutely stunning. And it's so beautiful to watch the tides turn. And I think that's what it takes, is audacity. So maybe I do like the word audacity.
Yeah. And that's a very good word for it, because not everybody fits a certain size. Their personality doesn't fit that size. And I think when we try to portray everybody as being a size 2 and a certain height, that is the standard that we should go by. And let's face it, the average female is not what a model looks like. And not everybody likes a woman that looks like that. So to me, beauty should be coming from the inside out, and it's all in the eyes of the beholder. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And let's see what else has happened since then. I went to a few shows in Dallas. I've walked for a few more agencies. When I went to Dallas, I got signed by another agency in Atlanta. They're called Presence Models. Wonderful agency. And it's just been not only a blessing, but I like to call it my becoming, just because I know that when I look back at who I was and to where I am today, it's mind-boggling, and I still have days of absolute defeat. I'm not going to sit around here and
can't erase that, right?
Absolutely. And I'm still learning coping skills. And, like you said, I recently, 6 months ago, my brother passed away, and that tore open a totally different wound. And those heal slowly, especially when you can't explain why it happened. And, we're still waiting on the autopsy as far as what happened to my brother. He's 24 years old, and he was a force to be reckoned with. He was lighthearted and funny and kind, and he loved well and big. And when you watch a life fade like that, because
you want to know why.
Well, yes. And because of depression or addiction, those are all demons that not only run genetically in our family, but we both faced. And it's very hard for me sometimes to, survivor's guilt is what I would like to call it, to know that I made it to the other side of it. Because we got institutionalized at the same place. We genetically and sadly had a lot of odds against us. And to know that I had to close the casket on someone that could have been saved is, I think, detrimental to not only my heart, but my understanding of life itself. And I'm still working through that. And, watching my mother bury her child is inexplainable. I don't think you've ever heard a real cry until you've heard a mother cry over the death of her child.
Yeah,
Because
I can't imagine. Don't ever want to experience it.
Absolutely. And she has embodied strength beyond comparison and shows up every single day for the kids and still finds her place to grieve. And she's a powerhouse. Honestly, she inspires me. And we have these conversations where we just talk about the reality of the situation, because my mom and I weren't always close. There was a lot of resentment and anger towards not only her, but my father, with the things that did happen to me and the choices that I did make or was allowed to make. And, there was a long time to where I never believed that we would be in a place where we could just coexist and love one another. And that goes for both of my parents. And now, my mom is my best friend. She's loyal to the end. And we're in this place of realism where we can have conversations like this, where it's like, not only did you fail me in certain points, but how can we move forward?
Right.
And what can we learn from this? Because I have siblings that are younger than me. I have 5 siblings that are under the age of 12. And, I tell her all the time when we have these conversations, how are we not going to have repetitive behavior moving forward? You buried your son, which obviously has nothing to do with who you are as a mother. It's just a tragedy. Your child, your young daughter went through these things, and obviously that's her own demons that she has to deal with. But we have these conversations where it's like, what preventative steps are we going to take now? How much love are we going to give now? What are the slate's clean between you and I, and nothing matters anymore, because I love me. And I think that's a profound, beautiful place.
I think more people need to look at a family relationship that way. Absolutely.
And I've found so much grace and peace within that relationship, because it's been so severed. To see where it's at now and to go, the possibilities are endless. I think everyone deserves to experience that. And there's so much hate that, I mentioned this before, that we carry around that's not ours. It's not my fault my mom failed me. And, there's a lot of things that weren't her fault either.
And I think going to say, there's a lot of times as kids, our parents don't know what we're doing.
Exactly. And, I think we get in this place, this misconception where we want to shame or we want to parent blame. And it's like, well, a lot of things that your parents struggle with were handed to them by their parents. So how are we going to start? And that's the conversations we have. How are we going to break those generational curses? How are we actually going to pay a beautiful tribute to the life that was lost? We can't bring my brother back. We can't change the fact that his children are going to grow up without a father, or, that he left this world depressed. I mean, that is the reality of the situation. I'm not, not to be bitter or, judgmental, but a realist with the situation. And where there is realism, there is change. I think there's beauty in realism. And a lot of people, they stray away from that because they're like, no, we don't want to talk about certain things.
That's very true. Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started my podcast, because I remember Anthony with Be the Change kept coming after me for probably 6 months. And he was like, I interviewed you once on Be the Change, and I know that you have some capability that's untapped. I don't see that in myself, but the more that I do this podcast, the more that I go, there is something that was hand woven in me.
Absolutely.
That I have this skill set that I know nothing about, and it's untapped and it's real. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that God gave me the capability to convey emotion the way that I do. I don't take it lightly. And kept persistently calling me. He would text me and be like, I'm not giving up on you, because I want you a part of this, because I think you're smart and I think you're capable. And I just kept
absolutely right.
And then I lost my brother. And I remember when I gave his eulogy and I came home that night, I was sitting on my front porch and I was just by myself. And I remember hearing, if not now, then when? And I think we get so caught up in not only ourselves, but the mess of it all that we forget that time is fleeting. And sadly and realistically, death can be that eye opener.
It can.
And there were so many things that my brother will never get to do. You know, he will never know the love of watching your children grow or them fall in love. So many things that we take for granted that is fleeting constantly. And it was in that moment that I was like, you know what? I'm damn well going to have what I want.
And there's no reason why you shouldn't.
Absolutely.
And you have a purpose, you have a value, you have something to say, you can help others. And I think you're doing a wonderful job trying to do that. I really do. I've watched a few of your shows, and talk to us about what that podcast is about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Questions Unraveled. So there's this term in the South, and it may be other places, but I've heard it my entire life growing up. My parents have even said it to me. And I think maybe the little bit of rebellion in me, if you will, but the term that everyone says, just push it under the rug, just sweep it under the rug, and we're just going to lay it back down. Because if no one knows, we don't have to face it. We don't have to talk about it.
It doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Exactly. We don't have to talk about things like uncle playing grab ass or parents drinking or heroin being in the home, things like that you would be surprised a lot of people have experienced because we're unaware of it, because we don't talk about it. So the whole purpose and premise of Questions Unraveled was to be everything against your All-American Picket Fence podcast. And that was to not only challenge the narrative, but to remove the rug.
Which and that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of pillars in the community that have a lot of hidden things that they don't talk about because they sweep it under the rug.
Absolutely. And I think, I know from my personal experience in watching the other people that I've had the privilege to not only interview, but get to know on this process and journey, is that the quicker that I'm going to say expose, because that's a good word. The quicker that we expose ourselves and our truths, not only do we have to live in shame, but we're able to go, nothing about this is shameful.
Right.
And we're taught that rape is like a whisper rape or molestation, because you would be surprised. Okay, excuse me. Let me just be factual here. 80% of children that are molested, it's by someone in the family or home.
Right.
The first sexual experience that some children have, it's either with someone they know, a sibling or spouse. There are so many things that could be prevented if there was education and openness. So the premise of Questions Unraveled is to challenge that narrative and to say, this happened to me. It's valid. My experience is valid, and all of this is real. And just because you're ashamed because of what you've been taught does not mean that I don't get to control the narrative.
That's right.
So I'm so damn proud of it and excited, because each time that someone says, you probably shouldn't be doing that, not only is your family going to judge you, but your friends, and you're trying to build.
Let them judge. Let them judge.
Mm-hmm. For every single person that does that, there's one that private messages me or gives me a call and says, you would never know this, but you've either saved my life or given me the ability to own what happened to me. Mm-hmm. You know, there are so many people. 1 in 4 women are raped.
Absolutely.
And let's not even get to the statistics about young men and the way that they have, are affected by sexual abuse and silence because of toxic masculinity. There are so many young men that are molested at a young age, and it's heartbreaking. And then
it's not just women. Yeah, I think people tend to lean more when they say somebody's been molested that it's usually women, but it's both.
Absolutely. Gosh, so many young men are molested. And I don't think, the narrative has been corrected. And that's something that I'm striving to do, not only to define what consent means, but to really go back to, we alienate the victims rather than alienating the predator.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what it feels like to be on a stand and feel alone, or to lock myself in my room and absolutely want to die because I can't wash off the person who has touched me. And that's psychological.
Even if you have physically washed and washed and washed, you can't do it up here. It's there.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that plays sometimes an unhealthy part in your marriage.
Yes, it does. My husband and I, he knows that I'm an open person and an open book, and the whole purpose of what I do is to help someone. I'm the type of person, if I can talk to you at Kroger and change your life, I'm going to freaking do it. I don't care if it's the cereal aisle.
We should all be like that.
I agree. Life is too short. Our marriage has been nothing less than an absolute roller coaster. We've been separated twice. We've lost connection with family. We've got connection back. And it all not only was because of things that he experienced where he was raised differently, but I had so much trauma that was just festering inside of me that just became this rage.
Mm-hmm.
I had so much anger with my heart, and still do. I'm not here to act like I'm perfect by any means. I'm an angry person. And I also had to learn.
Experience that.
Right. I had to learn through therapy that anger is an emotion for a reason. It can instill wisdom. It can instill courage. There are beautiful things that can come from anger. And I think we're so quick to say, you can catch more flies with sugar than you can honey. We're taught that.
Myself saying that.
Yes. It's very easy to do because it's naturally taught. It's like, don't get mad. Don't, God.
Or they come out and say, don't get mad before they tell you something.
Right. And no, my husband and I have struggled so deeply. He was 17 years old, and I was 15 when we went through the rape trial. That was a lot for a young relationship. And then we moved out on our own, and we moved in next to my rapist, and he had to deal with that all the time. And, I'd shared this in an interview I did years ago. But my husband was there when I got raped. We were good friends. We were in high school. We were at a party, a big bonfire, and the guy that raped me just took me away from the crowd. And Cody kept coming back and checking on me. And then he left me for 10 minutes. And when he came back, I was gone. So we took that into our marriage. We took, there was anger on my
some guilt.
Oh, for sure. And as a young woman that didn't have the maturity to, because we're constantly developing, I was angry with him. Because even though we weren't together, once we were married and I started fully going, I'm going to take this stuff out and I'm going to look at it, I was like, you abandoned me. You left me. And he was like, God, I live with that every day. How dare you? But we went through that back and forth where I blamed him and then he blamed himself. And I realized there was no one to blame but the rapist.
That's true. And you cannot blame yourself for somebody else's actions.
It tore apart our marriage, and we're still picking up the pieces and, finding ways to deal with it, whether it's, my anger or problems that he has, or, past things that have happened to me. And it's been interesting, but I will say it has been the most rewarding thing that I've ever experienced, because every day that I decide consecutively that I want to wake up and be married, I learned something. And marriage is not easy. It is, I've lost a lot of friends. I've been separated twice, and I'm 24 years old. Right, exactly.
You lost them, they were not your friends. I've
like, God, Emily, make a choice. What are you going to do? And I remember everyone was like, get over your trauma. Stop using it as a scapegoat. Stop leaving your husband. And I was like, I'm unhappy, and nothing is going to make me happy until I decide. So I've got to be sick for a little while, because that's what trauma is. That's what brokenheartedness is it's a sickness.
And it seems like every time you've started to heal, something else has happened. So you're not given a whole lot of time in between traumatic events. So Absolutely. It opens back up that wound, and it's making the process even harder to heal. But I've seen a change in you in the last couple months. When I first I met Emily on a virtual speaking event, and this was prior to her brother's passing. And I saw this bubbly young lady who has this future and it looks like everything is wonderful. Okay. And I don't know if that was just an outside appearance or not. And then I saw the news about your brother, and then I saw you spiral back down into a hole, basically. Not a spiral as in going back to your
Absolutely.
past actions, but you just retreated.
Oh no, I had a solid month where I started binge drinking every day.
Yeah.
And God, that was only 4 or 5 months ago. And I think a lot of people would say, "Whoa, Emily, don't share those things. Wait until you're out of it." No, I want to share with you, and I'm in the thick of it, because
Right.
a lot of people are in the thick of it right now. A
And
lot
that's
of people
help.
don't know a way out,
That's
and
correct.
it's not to wipe myself off and get on camera and say, "I'm fine, I'm whole." No, I'm not. I'm a shit show. I'm broken. I'm a mess. But I know that there are better days coming because I've experienced them.
But I'm
And I know
seeing
that,
you with those better days right now. I'm seeing the smiles return on your face. I'm seeing positive posts on your Facebook, your social media. I'm seeing the love you have for your family. So I just want you to know that I have seen the cycle that you've went through, and it looks like that to me that you are doing your best to overcome that and to put it behind you, but to also use it to move forward and to help others. And that's what your podcast really is about.
thank you so much. That means so much to me, because I think when you are in the thick of it, you think no one sees anything. And it was very easy to look at myself and go, just go right back to where you were,
Mm-hmm.
because it's
But you
comfortable.
know.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was very easy to look at my husband and say, screw this and you. I don't want to fix this. I don't want to work on this. I don't want to go to therapy or look at who we are and the way that we were raised and go, how are we going to fix this? It'd be a hell of a lot easier to give up, go and have somebody, fill my physical needs or boost my confidence for a moment, than to actually face something that's worth having. And that's with addiction, that's with friendships, that's with anything.
And you
And
just said it, something that's worth having. And you know
it,
what? Relationships are worth having. They absolutely, they're right ones.
mm-hmm,
The right relationships are worth having. And I'm glad to see that you are realizing that, because if you can't realize that, you might as well just go on back to where you were and be happy and do the drugs and drink and do whatever
right.
it is that you think, keyword think, is going to get you through it. Because in
Mm-hmm,
reality, it's not going to get you through it. It's always going to come back up and resurface. So you got to face it. You got to own it, and you got to move forward from it.
absolutely.
I see you doing that.
Thank you. That means so much to me. And I hope to create that safe haven for other people as well as time goes on and I grow and mature and learn new things and new skills. And that's who I am. And that's what my goal is, to not only incite change, but to inflict discomfort upon you, because where there's comfort, there's no change. And
Right.
that's what I strive for.
And if you say you really want to change, you have to face what it was that got you there to begin with. And if you're not willing to face what happened and talk about it and research what's going to make you happy and research what
Right.
made you get to the situation that you were in. And I'm not talking about rape or death or anything. I'm talking about life in general, that we all have a past. We all have had some type of tragedy. And it's what you do with it and how you respond and how you change, because change is possible. Good change is possible, bad change is possible, but change in either direction is possible. And it's what you do with your life and how you treat others, how you make amends, how you move that focus to the direction that needs to be so you can have positive change. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, to maybe want to be on your show and tell their story, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on my Facebook at Emily Nicole, or you can reach me on my website where you can fill out just a quick form. It's emilynicoleunraveled.com. And also when this video is posted, I'll add that info in the comments as
Good.
well.
Good.
And I also have an Instagram page. It's Emily Nicole Unraveled. But if you feel the need to reach out to me, just know that it's a safe space, and we can either talk about it or, we can go a step further and press record and talk about the realism and the truths and the disheartening facts about your story, because I think the quicker that we realize it's not necessarily about yourself in the moment, but I have found the more that I open myself to sharing, someone is helped. And that not only does so much for your healing process, but it does something for your soul that is indescribable. There, I've received messages where people have said, I was going to end it all. And that is a wild thing to hear, to know that you just living your truth and honoring who you are not only has saved your life, but another. And it's brave and it's beautiful.
Right. I'm going to put you in touch with Kim Case. She does a show about victims. She was a victim. She's also a speaker at this upcoming event we're having in August. She actually wanted to interview me. And I said, you do realize my past, because we were on the opposite sides of the law. And she said,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, because change can happen. It's real. Backsliding can also happen. It's also real. But the more you try to help others, the more you try to make amends, the more, and I don't mean make amends in a way, in my situation, I had to make amends with folks that I had wronged. You need to make amends in with yourself, that it wasn't your fault, that you did survive it, that you have a value, that you have a worth. And so amends can be on any subject in any direction, but until you can come to terms with your own truth about yourself, healing's not going to happen. And I see that. And Kim has a very loving personality and is very accepting. And I think the two of you would be a good fit for you to.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes. So we'll go ahead and end with this. What piece of advice would you give somebody that's struggling in any area of their life?
Laying it on thick for me, Brenda. Oh man. There is something that I've told myself on my darkest days. And I think we get so caught up in the possibility of sounding cliche, and I don't care.
It is what it is.
And it's this: to the self that has yet to exist, there is possibility within the brokenness. And there were times where I did not think that I was going to survive. There were nights where I did try to take my life. And if you're in that place, or even just overcoming something, or angry or bitter, let it go, because to the self that is yet to exist, to the person that you have yet to meet, oh man, when you get on the other side of that and you start to watch yourself find joy again, when you start to watch yourself have honesty and character and integrity, because none of us are perfect. For God's sake, I was a drug addict. I know what it's like to have a lack of integrity and character, but to watch myself and go, I trust me, and I want other people to trust me.
But you have that integrity and character now.
I do.
You are not that same person. And that's what people need to realize. You can become better. You can become better. You can become stronger. You can become somebody that you never thought you would be, in the right direction.
So it's just to the self that is yet to exist, because there is possibility, and within possibility is growth. And if you will just hold on a little longer, and even if you got to crawl, because I know what it's like to be at rock bottom. I unpacked and I lived there for a while because it was at least familiar. Might have been painful, but at least I knew what was coming.
You knew what was around the corner.
So let go, pack your bags, take a step, and tell yourself, to the self that is yet to exist, I can't wait to meet you. And that's what I do every day, honestly.
Wonderful.
Because if I didn't do that, I would still be the same person. So chase possibility.
That's very well said, and so true. So folks, if you can't find her and you want to talk to her, you can contact me. Everything's at Brenda Ringwood, either on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever. Find me, or you can call me 913-957-3693. Be happy to talk with you, be happy to point you in the right direction, put you in contact with Emily. And thanks again for watching. It's been a pleasure, Emily.
Thank you so much.